Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we accidentally predict the future. Because this week we listened to Sentinels of the New Dawn.
Written by Paul Finch.
Directed by Lisa Bowerman.
Again.
Again.
And released in April 2011. Or 2011 if you're from 2011. Then you would say 2011. But since this is 2017, I'm going to say 2011.
So when did they actually start doing that whole 20 blank scheme?
What?
Was that like 2012?
I mean, it wasn't like a unanimous decision to start doing it. It's just people started doing it, saying 2017 is somehow more difficult or less desirable than saying 2011.
That's because it's I don't know, really. 2017 is a single syllable longer than 2017, so maybe that's why. I gotta save that one syllable.
Yeah, I can't waste your time in this day and age in 2017. Gotta say 2017 and 2017.
I feel like 2012 is what kind of kicked that off, though.
What, the movie?
Partially the movie, but also mostly the year. I don't know why, though. I just feel like that's when it started. That would be something that a linguist would be thrilled to research, actually, probably. But anyway, that's not what this podcast is about.
Instead, it's about Doctor Who. I'm just kidding.
Are you kidding? I love this show. So, this story had an interesting way to make it to our ears, I guess. I was going to say to the screen, but it's not really to the screen. It's more like to the ears, I guess. I don't know.
To the audio file?
Yeah.
To the CD, if you're from 2011. Okay, no, nobody used CDs in 2011, so.
Basically, Paul Finch's dad, I believe his name was Brian Finch. I'm not certain on that, though. His dad wrote a story for the Sixth Doctor back when the show was on air, but it didn't get accepted, called Leviathan. And then so Paul Finch, when Big Finish was doing the Lost Stories range, said, hey, I've got the story that my dad wrote. Do you want it? And Big Finish was like, yeah. So Paul Finch adapted the story for Big Finish. And the main, well, not the main enemy of that, but like an enemy who shows up in that are the Sentinels of the New Dawn. So Paul Finch and David Richardson, producer of the Companion Chronicles, as he always introduces himself as on the QA, thought, hey, well, maybe there's something here. We can do a prequel to that story and talk about, the Sentinels of the New Dawn in more detail, because they're an interesting villain, I guess. And so he wrote this story, and apparently...
Yeah, using those family connections to...
Yeah, this is the only story he's written for Big Finish. I mean, he adapted Leviathan, but this is the only one he's written on his own. It's kind of sad, because at the end of the QA, David Richardson's like, and maybe we'll see more of the Sentinels of the New Dawn in the future. Stay tuned, and at that,
here we
apparently,
are in 2017.
6 years later, and still no sign. But yeah, Paul Finch is like, oh yeah, this was totally my era of Doctor Who when I was watching, like, the Third Doctor.
The Liz Shaw era.
Yeah. He's like, the Third Doctor and Liz Shaw. That was my era.
That one season was my era.
And, more power to him, I guess. You know what you like. And so you did it. You wrote for it.
Yeah.
This story doesn't explicitly take place in that era, though.
Takes place in 2014/2014.
Oh, God. Are you going to say 1974 too, or just 1974?
We'll get there.
Okay. No, but what I mean is it takes place for Liz after she leaves UNIT, both in the framing narrative and in the story that she's telling.
Yeah.
It's actually even after Terror of the Autons, because she mentions that the Doctor hadn't immediately taken to his new assistant, which is Joe Grant, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I should probably just say right now that I have no idea what happened in this, because I listened to it at work, so, yeah.
I listened
paid
to this
attention
while,
for like the first 10 minutes, and I was like, well, I'm getting no work done, so, yeah.
I listened to this while walking two dogs this week. Whew. That is an experience. So, yeah, so it begins with this guy who shows up at Liz's house. Old Liz.
Okay, I should probably first say it begins with me looking at the cover art, and I don't know if this is how you saw it, but I couldn't see the cover art as any other way, I guess, than Liz Shaw wearing giant red shoulder pads. I mean, yeah.
I didn't see that at all.
Just pull it up for a sec. It looks like she's wearing a Time Lord outfit, like with that halo kind of thing behind her head and those giant red shoulder pads right there. I mean, I know that's the background. But
yeah. I guess, yeah. I guess I could see that. That's not what I saw at all.
It also has the Third Doctor's flattened hair from his first season, which is season 7.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
What I actually do like about this cover, there's a very small detail that I only noticed because I was looking.
The giant crow, man.
Yes. That's actually exactly what I was going to know. So that I only noticed because I had like a massive copy of the image open. I don't remember why.
But Big Finish gives you that copy for
1417 by 1417.
You mean 1417 by... Yeah. The 1417. But anyway, there in the middle there's this like triangular-ish shape with a boat zooming away, and at first you're like, how does this even tie into the story? But you'll find that out later. But if you look at the boat, there's like a very small Third Doctor that the guy who had designed the cover had actually gone through the effort of putting into the boat on the cover. Maybe it's just a piece of a screenshot of the Third Doctor on a boat. I don't remember if he ever goes on a boat, but yeah.
I mean, the closest thing was that time he was in the Who-mobile, zooming across. He ran over that one guy, remember?
No.
That guy was lying on the ground and the Who-mobile just zoomed over him and he's like, what the heck?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of a time when he was on a boat, but I can't really.
I just keep thinking of, is it Live and Let Die? The one Bond movie where the Roger Moore's Bond is on a boat and he's zooming by and he ramps over that car. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to bring light to the fact that this guy had gone through this effort. I think the guy who designed this cover was Alex Mallinson. I looked yesterday. And I just wanted to bring light to the fact that he included that extremely small detail.
Good on him, I guess.
Yeah, so begins with this supposedly unit guy coming to Liz Shaw and is like, hey, what's up with those new Dawn fellas? And she's like, yeah, that meeting never happened. And he's like, explain. She's like, well, I guess I can explain it to you because I'm old and I don't really care anymore.
I'll be dead soon anyway, so whatever comes of this explanation won't be my problem.
Caroline John actually has passed away since this audio was recorded in today. So, I think 2012, 2013 maybe.
Rip in pieces. Okay.
I feel like she's resting in one piece. Yes.
Yeah, so this is, right away, you know this is way after Liz Shaw leaves UNIT. Yeah. After her however many months there. Probably wasn't that long.
She says something like 6 or something in this story.
Oh, does she? I don't remember that.
Yeah, so she's like, oh yeah, I never entered an official record about our meeting with the New Dawn people because of obvious reasons that'll become evident when I tell you the story.
Yeah, thinking back, this is probably the craziest situation that Liz got herself into.
Yeah, and I actually really enjoyed this story because of that. Because it really actually gave Liz something to do and used a lot of elements of her character that they never, like, explicitly made use of on screen. Like, things like, oh, she's a doctor and she knows all these things about viruses and...
Yeah. There's also those Third Doctor cliche... Well, maybe not cliches, but those Third Doctor things where he just, like, shuts people down and, like, shuts Liz down.
Less so in this story, though, I feel like, than when he was actually with Liz.
Yeah, probably. There's this one line from Liz, it's in her narrations, like, the doctor that I knew wasn't prone to being nice to anyone around him, or something like that.
Well, he's apparently really upset that he's been exiled to Earth.
Yeah, and Liz plays it off like, she tries to defend it like, he was under a lot of pressure from the invading aliens that he'd been dealing with. And I was like, yeah, all right. The other doctors were under a lot of pressure too. They never went that far. Still haven't forgiven season 7 Third Doctor, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah, and I think...
Still mad? Okay, no, I'm not.
I think this story does benefit from the fact that it's obviously the season 8 Third Doctor at least. And Liz gets a little bit more of a rapport with the Third Doctor than she did on screen.
A little bit more of a role in the story.
That too. Well, okay, so she's mentioning...
Okay, this doesn't have to do with this story, but was this Liz even in Inferno? I can't really remember. Was it just the alternate universe Liz? Pretty sure
Liz was in Inferno, but only like...
At the beginning?
Because most of the Inferno-verse was like the middle, I think 4 episodes, but like there was the bounding episodes and a couple of shots in between with regular Liz.
Huh.
She was in Inferno, though. I remember that because she was there when the Doctor turned on the TARDIS and
I was there.
Jumped into the Inferno-verse. Anyway,
yeah, she starts telling this story.
She mentions these other invasions she dealt with the Doctor, like the Silurians and the Ambassadors of Death, and the Mim. And I was like, who are the Mim? And the wiki's like, oh yeah, these are mentioned in this other Liz Shaw audio drama. And I was like, okay, cool. So she's telling this story about how a year after she left UNIT, she was working at Cambridge with her mentor, whose name I don't remember now.
Yeah, was that Stan something?
No, Stan Hope showed up later when they accidentally go through the time corridor. She was working
I didn't know
with
anyone's name in this either.
Like Bridget something, I think. Maybe I'm getting it confused with the Bioshock character Bridget Tenenbaum, because I think they had the same initials.
BT.
Yes. But she's working with this person on... This person, we'll call her the Professor for now, because that's... Actually, no, that'll confuse you with Professor Beauregard later. We'll call her BT. BT is working...
Okay, no.
BT is working on this device, kind of like a particle accelerator that'll accelerate particles to near light speeds and dilate the time around them, which is an actual thing, by the way. When particles travel close to the speed of light, time slows down from the frame of reference for the particle. But it's not usually a localized effect. It's usually just if you're that particle, then time is slower for you.
All right.
It's kind of usually summed up in moving clocks run slow. So she's trying to harness this and make like a time
flow analog. No.
Third Doctor can help with that. No, she has more funding and more legitimate scientific basis for her device. She's trying to build a like time gate thing,
basically a time travel thing.
And so Liz thinks that this is dangerous because she thinks that humans shouldn't have access to time travel because
most characters in this show don't, and as is probably true.
Because she thinks that people will do some pretty bad things with time travel.
As is probably true.
As she's proven correct in this story. So she calls up the Doctor, like, oh, this is time travel experiment, and she makes this whole big deal about how the Doctor was super excited to come down and examine this time travel device. And I'm like, I wonder why.
So they head down there.
Yeah, to Cambridge. The basement in Cambridge.
Where all this stuff usually goes down, the basement. But,
all great science happens in basements.
Yeah, I don't know what happens next.
Well, so the Doctor's like, well, let's just turn it on because as long as there isn't another time gate for it to connect to...
go wrong?
Well, okay, the Doctor's got a legitimate reason for not expecting anything to go wrong because if there isn't another time gate for it to connect to, it's just a time mirror, he says, and you can just step in and you can see the future or the past.
Yeah.
But only in that room. So the other time gate would have to be in that room to connect to it. So he says, he doesn't say this, but he implies that the probability of that occurring is so low that they should be totally fine. Which is a reasonable assumption, okay? It's a reasonable assumption. it turns out to be completely wrong because some dudes in 2014 have built a time gate thing. I'm just going to call it the time gate, but that's not what it was called. The time gate, and Liz and the Doctor get bumped into 2014.
Yeah.
Which is still in the future when this audio was released as well. So.
Yeah, when this audio was released in 2011, 2014 was still in the future.
But it's in the past for us.
Yeah, which makes this... What? So they're in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
They're still in the basement, and they're confronted with these two guys. One was Stanhope, or whatever his name was, and the other guy, I don't know his name.
Richard Beauregard.
Yeah, him.
The most posh bad guy villain name possible.
And they're like, hey, it's you guys.
How's it going? Liz Shaw and Dr. BT, because I still don't remember her name.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, that's who we are. Yeah, definitely. And they're like, so how are those experiments going? And they're like, it worked.
Yes.
Yeah, when I said I didn't remember what happened in this story, I seriously meant that I had no idea what happened in this story.
That's okay. Everybody gets their off day.
Maybe this is just one of those ones that I'm still going to have to save on my computer, like Pyramids of Mars. Still have that on my computer.
You really should watch Pyramids of Mars. It really is good.
Maybe in a couple years when there are more stories I have saved up that I don't know what happened in, I can just marathon them. Even though they have no connection at all except being part of Doctor Who.
We can make a 3-hour podcast episode entitled it Keon Watches and Listens to Stories He Didn't Listen to the First Time.
Well, it's only at 2 so far. It's this one and Pyramids of Mars, but hopefully there'll be some more in the near future.
Hopefully.
I'm probably going to listen to the Cyberman story we have coming up, because that's, by the time we have it recorded, it'll be like a month and a half since I listened to it, so I might listen to it again.
Right. Anyway, they don't actually claim to be these people yet, because they're just calling the Doctor. So Liz thinks the Doctor's introduced himself as the Doctor, because the Doctor wakes up before Liz, and they call Liz Liz because she's Liz.
Can you repeat that? Okay, no.
What, they call Liz Liz because she's Liz?
Before that.
Oh, okay. So they get in a helicopter, a jet helicopter, by the way, a jetcopter, so to speak.
A Jedicopter? A helijet?
A Jedi copter.
A Jedi starfighter, so to speak? Anakin's Jedi starfighter,
yes.
If you know what I'm saying.
I don't really think there's any other thing you could be implying with Anakin's starfighter except that they're in Anakin's starfighter. But anyway, they get taken to this castle. Apparently, Richard Beauregard is rich and just had...
That's why his name's Richard.
Oh, I thought his name was Richard because he's a dick.
That too.
He's built a castle in England.
What? There's no castles in England.
You're telling me Hogwarts isn't real?
Isn't the castle that they used for that actually in Scotland?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, now there's one here in SoCal, so, no, I've never been to that Harry Potter park or whatever it is, so...
There's also, Hearst Castle.
Yeah, the one castle in California.
Hearst Castle isn't even a real castle, it's just a really big house that he called a castle because he was a self-righteous dude.
Richard?
I think his name was his name was William Hearst.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know.
Founder of the Hearst Empire.
Isn't the castle just a really big house, though?
Yeah,
just a really big medieval house.
Yeah, pretty much.
With garrisons.
Yeah, with armaments. In case people invade.
Yeah, no, that's actually, there's a lot of this in this story, but that's actually why a lot of castles are on hills, so that the people who live in them can look down on the peasants, figuratively. Okay, no, it's actually literally in case the peasants invade, so that when the peasants run up the hill to invade, they can just shoot them down and, like, slice them down more easily.
Well, yeah, the high ground is generally military advantage. And I don't mean
Yeah.
that as a joke reference to Star Wars. I actually mean legitimately the high ground is...
It's over, Anakin. I have the higher ground.
The high ground is actually like a strategic military advantage. Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Richard Sun Tzu. Okay, no.
Richard Nixon's sons. Okay, anyway. So they go to this, they get taken to this castle, and they decide to put Liz and the Doctor up in these rooms because they're like, oh, the time gate got damaged when they came through, so they've got to order more accelerator rods, which will take a week to arrive. So they're like, okay, I guess we'll hole up in your castle for now.
Yep.
And
they're invited to some sort of event or party or something like that.
well, there's a party going on when they get there.
Oh.
They're like, oh, this is New Dawn. And they're like, okay, what's New Dawn? So Beauregard explains, like, oh, it's this thing, you know, we're trying to be ecologically friendly. And
Yeah, it's like a non-profit organization or something like that.
yeah, it's also like a political movement, apparently on the fringe right, according to the guy who shows up at the beginning of the story. They're talking about feeding the world and all these really humanitarian things, which, because this is a Doctor Who story, means that they're not actually humanitarians, they're actually evil
Super
monsters. Yeah.
So they kind of just chill at this party for a bit.
Yeah.
And then there's a speech, I guess, from one of the leaders of New Dawn.
Well, so the speech occurs. Liz and the Doctor get taken to the rooms and they get gassed.
Oh, yeah.
But Liz
is like, I felt the cyanide
well,
in my mouth. I don't know.
What does she call it? It was a gas derived from nitrous oxide, she said. And she eats 3 bananas and puts a wet face cloth over her face. And that works, apparently.
Yeah.
So they turn off the gas and she goes to sneak around and she discovers that the Doctor's been taken to this massive table where they're having a feast, and she describes it like it's a medieval feast. They're all munching down on just meat haunches. Lamb chops. And then the speech that you mentioned occurs where they talk about, oh yeah, this is the Doctor that we've been looking for, Dr. BT. And
this isn't the Doctor you're looking for.
This is when Liz finds out that they think the Doctor is the other Doctor, and this kind of confused me because I was like, you'd think, you know, there'd be a picture or a description of the original Dr. BT that would, I don't know, indicate that she's female, and that very obviously this dude they brought through is not.
Yeah, like, did they not even know her name? Okay, obviously there would be a picture, and it's just for the sake of the story that there's not. But is there no record that, that even has her name on it? Maybe it's a unisex name, like, I don't know, I can't think of any that start with a B right now, but I'm sure there's some.
Bobby.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, Bobby could be a unisex name.
Yeah, if you're Southern. There's probably more too, but I guess it doesn't matter.
So they're like, yeah, we've got this guy. He's going to help us with our time machine so we can...
And world domination plan, so yeah.
We're going to use this time machine to dominate the world. They reveal that they've already been using the time mirror to look into the future and past to manipulate the stock market to become rich.
Yeah, there's... What's really suspicious right off the bat, this is actually before when the Doctor and Liz first get to the parties, Liz is like, there's a lot of bald people with tons of tattoos and swastikas. Okay, no, she doesn't say that, but yeah, that's kind of the idea that you get when you hear this, so...
Also considering they're on the fringe right, kind of... But then again, there's also an African warlord.
Yeah, right after that.
Whose assistant, I think, is named Milken, or Milliken, or something like that, who's got a super scarred face. The human features are barely recognizable.
Yeah, I don't remember him, honestly, but yeah.
But anyway, so the Doctor ends up getting taken to this surgery room, and in transit, Liz shows up, and then the doctor Venusian Aikidos the guards.
Yeah, bringing back that Venusian Aikido.
Yeah. And then they escape in a boat.
Yeah, I didn't get that they escaped in a boat, because, again, I wasn't paying much attention. I thought they just ran away.
Well, they ran, and they got to a boat, and they got in the boat and went zooming off across the lake or whatever. And then this bird starts attacking them. Well, they think it's a bird, but it's not actually a bird. It's like a bird-human hybrid thing.
It's Harvey Birdman. Okay, now.
Harvey Birdman, attorney at law. No, I actually thought of...
Horus, the Egyptian god.
No.
I did.
I thought of, from Bioshock Infinite, because I played that recently, the songbird. There's a like mechanical bird that protects this girl that you're trying to save. It's never clear if there's a human inside the mechanical suit or not. It's like super vague about it, but it's a massive giant bird, and that's exactly all I could think of when I was listening to the story. So, yeah.
All right.
Bioshock Infinite, good game. The bird thing is attacking them, so it has a name, but I don't remember that either. It began with an A.
Aaron. No, I'm just kidding.
Aaron. All right, we'll call it Aaron. So Aaron is
Speaking of video games, there's this old Konami game on the original Game Boy called God Medicine. It's this weird old Japanese game. There's nothing in the game that indicates why it's called God Medicine. It's a really funny game because it's supposed to be serious, but it's actually not. At the end, you find out the demons are actually aliens in an M. Night Shyamalan style twist, and the evil demon warlord guy is named Grover. You find that out at the end of the game.
The biggest twist would be if that Grover is former U.S. President Grover Cleveland.
And the biggest twist about that is that former U.S. President Grover Cleveland is actually Grover from Sesame Street.
I would take a Muppet as president right now. Elmo for president 2020.
I'm voting for Kanye.
Is Kanye going to be old enough to be president in 2020?
You have to be 35, right? I'm pretty sure he's that old.
I don't know. Anyway, they make it into this house where Aaron busts in. He's like, squaw!
So bringing back that classic third Doctor thing of bird villains like Kronos from the Time Monster.
Kronos wasn't supposed to look like a bird. That was just because the only budget they had was a white sheet.
Then explain that beak-shaped face.
All right, you got me there.
Checkmate.
I got nothing. So, anyway, Stanhope is like, well, okay, so part one ends with Aaron in the room with them, and then...
I can't believe we're just calling him Aaron now.
What, would you rather call him the Birdman thing?
No.
So then part two, Stanhope shows up and it's like, oh yeah, Aaron's not going to attack you if you don't, if Beauregard doesn't order him to attack you. So the doctor's like, nifty, how does it work? And Stanhope's like, there's this DNA thing.
Yeah. It's just kind of dumb.
That keys it to, to what it should attack.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you have this technology in making this man-bird hybrid. I feel like you could take over the world already.
But no, you have to have time travel.
Hubris is what brings down all these villains.
Yeah, so he takes them to some facility.
Back to the castle, I think.
Something, yeah. I didn't know where this facility was, because again, I wasn't paying much attention, but I just liked imagining that it was underground.
I think it was under the castle.
Yeah, so he shows them the machine, or whatever, that keys things in to attack people with certain DNA.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, doctor, here's your DNA that is in this right now." And Liz is like, "Why can't we just take this out?"
The doc's like, because it has a log of all the DNA, the most previous DNA, so we would have to replace it with something. And you're like, I wonder if the doctor's going to sneakily replace it with something. Spoiler alert, he does, but you don't find out till later.
And surprisingly enough, he actually doesn't. No. This never comes into play again. Okay. No, I don't remember what they do next.
Well, so they're in this facility, and Stanhope's like, oh, there's a portable time gate. I'll go get it because I've realized that New Dawn kind of crazy. So I'm probably going to send you back so that, this won't happen. And they're like, thanks.
Haven't they already cut away to New Dawn's Nazi-like agendas at certain points?
Well, so now it's revealed. This is when, Liz's actual, doctorate comes into play because she's looking at all these test results and is like, oh, they're, investigating the Ebola virus from Africa, and they're trying to make a bioweapon out of it. Yeah. And the doctor's like, oh, my virology knowledge isn't as up to par as you, but yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, which this was kind of weird because I knew this came out in 2011, and when they mentioned the Ebola epidemic of 2014, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, this is when they accidentally predicted the future because there actually was an Ebola epidemic in 2014, in case you've been living under a rock for the past 3 years.
Yeah, but wasn't that just one of those things where the media way overhyped it and it only really happened for a couple weeks? I know a lot of people died, but...
Kind of. They overhyped it in the aspect that they kind of fear-mongered, oh, the Ebola virus is going to spread to America. Here,
and they were all... they always played those stories on the news. This is back when I actually used to watch the news, of, people being like, yeah, I have Ebola, and, every time some new guy on the corner of a street was like, yeah, I have Ebola, they ran a story about it on the news.
Yeah, because, they didn't overhype it in the aspect that it was, a big deal in Africa where medical care and medicine just isn't on the level of first world countries. When it got to a first world country, you could at least be comfortable when you had the virus, whereas in Africa, you had a pretty high probability of dying. It was so... Yeah, the media kind of misrepresented how much of a big deal it was in America, but it was still a big global affair kind of thing.
Yeah. If you don't know, the news in the U.S. is really sensationalist. When I went to the UK and watched the news, I was like, wow, this is
actually
news.
Fact-based.
They actually said on the news, we don't have enough information about this right now, so we'll get back to you about this story later, instead of just rambling on about it for 20 minutes.
Instead of making wild assumptions and causing riots by giving people, I hate to use this term, but fake news.
Yeah, but anyway, that's another story for another podcast. Actually, it's not, because I don't want to talk about it, and all I have to say about it, I just said, so yeah.
Brilliant. Case closed. We solved the case.
We solved the news, guys.
We fixed Doctor Who, we fixed the news. What will we fix next? Send us your ideas at thedoctordecorative.com. Anyway.
If you're part of New Dawn, get in touch with us.
We'll take down your organization from the inside. What? So then they go... so Liz runs into the African warlord, and he's conveniently explaining the entire plan to his assistant. He's like, so we're going to make this Ebola virus, we're going to unleash it on the world, and the New Dawn is going to be the only place that has the cure because we engineered the virus. And I was like...
What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing, because the plan never gets put in motion. So, yeah, Liz and the doctor get ratted out, but they run away. They make it to the helicopter, and Stanhope gets shot on the helipad, and they, they drag him into the helicopter. He's like, I'm going to die here, but just make sure that the other me doesn't...
Die. No, okay.
Make sure the other me is immortal. Make sure that the other me doesn't help New Dawn do all this stuff. And apparently, Liz Shaw had one job, which was to make sure the other Stanhope doesn't get involved in New Dawn, and she doesn't even do that.
You had one job, Liz.
Yeah, because in the very last scene of the audio, this is jumping ahead just a touch, but the supposed unit guy drives away and is in the car. He makes a phone call and he's like, So, yeah, interestingly enough, there was another timeline where we had time travel. Oh, yeah, check up on Stanhope. He might be a traitor. I guess kind of doing that thing like, oh, there might be a sequel, which there never was. Thanks, Paul Finch.
Yeah, I mean, probably would be interesting to get more of this.
Yeah, they're an interesting villain,
You-
if only because they're more of a grounded villain than some of the more fantastical ones we've had on the show.
I guess, sort of reminded me of Silver Nemesis almost.
Yeah, a little bit.
That wasn't as grounded, I guess.
They're,
Yeah, you find out at the end that the guy who's been talking to Liz is surprised from New Dawn, like if you didn't see it coming already.
I mean, I didn't see it coming in the first part because I wasn't paying attention to the framing narrative, but in the second part where they made the framing narrative more important, I was like, hey, he's
Yeah, it's
probably
pretty
from New
obvious.
Dawn.
I don't think it was supposed to be a big secret,
No.
so whatever.
Yeah, so in the second part, they flying on the helicopter, and then Beauregard's like, I'm gonna have Aaron attack you, and the doctor's like, sure, do it, just do it. And I'm like, Doctor, what are you doing? And then there's this crash sound, and it turns out the doctor swapped out his DNA for Beauregard's DNA because Beauregard put the doctor up in his room, and he used Beauregard's hairbrush, and apparently one of Beauregard's hairs got stuck on the doctor's smoking jacket.
Yeah. So,
For once, wearing velvet was handy.
if you go into any area you go to, you leave traces of your DNA based on like dead skin and dead hair that falls off you at all times. So,
And also, hair gets stuck to you a lot, as evidenced by the fact that I walked into this podcast recording today covered in dog hair.
ever seen that movie Gattaca?
I haven't actually.
No. All right.
Is getting stuck with hair a major plot point of that movie?
No. He just he places someone else's DNA on all of his
Okay.
stuff to not be detected. That's not a spoiler. It's like right in the beginning of the movie.
Anyway, they make it through the time corridor. Liz decides to just destroy her mentor's machines and notes, and they burn all the notes. And then she's like, and she never talked to me again. Because she thought I destroyed it out of professional jealousy, and not for the reason that I actually did it, which was to prevent this Nazi-ish, crazed, lunatic group of people from getting time travel.
She could have just explained it. I mean, I don't know how much BT would have believed it, but maybe.
She said she didn't want to... She explained this. She said she didn't want to explain it to her because she didn't want to reveal to her that her technology had been used to commit all of these atrocities, and she thought it was better for her to just destroy the machine and leave it at that.
Maybe. I don't know.
And apparently she died like 3 months after Liz destroyed the machine. Liz is like, maybe it was because of the betrayal.
Depression.
Yeah, she
and
was
betrayal.
like, maybe it was because of the betrayal. And then she's like, well, she probably died in the other timeline too, because otherwise they would have just called her up and just got her from the in the future, but clearly she died before now. This is apparently like set also roughly close to 2014 in the framing narrative.
Yeah.
Because Liz says...
I think a little afterwards.
Yeah, because Liz says right about now is when this whole New Dawn business would be starting up anyway.
Yeah.
And the guy's
So
like,
the
well,
guy's
they're
like,
on
"All
Unit's
right,
radar now,
thanks."
haha. Apparently Liz anyway got to give the doctor the proper goodbye that she never did because she just ditched for Cambridge.
Yeah, and at the end, this guy who she's telling the story to reveals that he intercepted a letter to the brig and burned it.
Well,
Or something like that.
no, I think he took it from the unit archives because he mentions at the very start that the only mention of New Dawn in the unit archives was a letter that Liz sent to the Brigadier right after the event. And I think he went into the unit archives, found the letter, and then he burned the letter so that there wouldn't be any trace of New Dawn.
Interesting.
Oh, because
Not
apparently
really,
the brig also knows all the details because Liz told the brig all the details, but the brig, she asked the brig not to record it down officially because she didn't want an official record.
Yeah, the brig is too busy gardening.
Brig's too busy blowing up Silurians. Thank you very much.
The end of the Silurians, though. Oh, sorry, I mean Doctor Who and the Silurians. Can't forget that full title there.
I think it's easier just to say the Silurians. Much like it's easier to say
Yeah.
2017 than 2017.
But do you really want to take the easy way out
Yes.
on this?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's your decision.
Yeah, it is. Much like it's easier to say 1974 instead of 1974. In the year of our Lord, 1974. Anyway, yeah, that's how it ends. I don't know.
Yeah.
I rather enjoyed this story, actually.
I mean, as I said like 5 times already, I wasn't paying much attention, but even if I was, I think this would just be a mediocre story to me. I didn't really find too many of the concepts or plot points in it that interesting.
I enjoyed it because it was, I think...
No real interesting music or sound effects or anything like that.
There wasn't
either.
any interesting music. There was some interesting sound effects, like when the bird crashed and when Aaron crashed into the helicopter, and
Bring back Aaron.
there was some crazy sound effects when they went through the time gate. But I enjoyed it because it was a change
Shaw story.
from the Liz Shaw stories we got on screen.
Yeah, and that Liz actually did some stuff.
Yeah, and Liz actually got to use like her knowledge and her intelligence. Like, she knew roughly how the time gate worked because of her understanding of quantum mechanics or whatever. And I don't know, this story kind of felt like a political thriller wrapped up in a Doctor Who
Political
casing.
thriller held back by a Doctor Who casing.
I wouldn't say it was held back.
Just a joke.
Definitely made more interesting because of the Doctor Who
Stuff
casing. Yeah.
like Aaron.
Yeah, like Aaron. And I enjoyed that. I think I mentioned when the Third Doctor's era finished that I enjoyed aspects of the Third Doctor's era in that it was more...
Grounded.
Yeah, more
always
grounded.
set on Earth.
More...
Always had unit.
More action-y.
Always was the same formula every single time.
That
week
I didn't
after
like.
Week. Okay, no.
Neither of us liked that same formula. But it was more action-y and more... Felt more like a spy movie than a sci-fi series.
Yeah. Sure.
And I don't know. I feel like Doctor Who is always more interesting when it's not explicitly being quote-unquote Doctor Who. I mean, that's not to say that, doing all these super timey-wimey nonsense with...
Well, that's just the
stuff.
reboot as far as I know. The classic show doesn't actually have much to do with time travel, other than like, hey, we can travel through time to get anywhere.
Yeah, but like at the same time, there's still like a
There's
quote-unquote
there's
a
a little bit
Doctor
of it.
Who story is, the Doctor ends up on some
Well,
place. There's a race being subjugated by another
usually a
race.
pre-existing conflict.
Yeah, there's a pre-existing conflict, and the Doctor always sides with the oppressed rather than the oppressor, and he overthrows the oppressor by the end of the story, generally.
Yeah, well, it depends like what era of Doctor Who you're looking at and which one you, I guess, remember the best and which one you like the best. Because, like, I don't know, the Fourth Doctor's era, I guess, is to me probably because it's the longest one, and because I'm newer to Doctor Who, I guess, than most people, is like when people say like Doctor Who story, like, yeah, that's probably what I'm gonna think of,
And that's
especially the Douglas Adams stuff. But
yeah.
or maybe I don't know the first and second Doctor's story, because I mean what you're describing is like first and second Doctor and fourth Doctor too.
Well, I mean, that's not to say that stories like that are a bad thing, because I think you can do them well. It's just, in my opinion, the stories are more, to me anyway, interesting when Doctor Who tries to do something that it doesn't usually do, like this, where it tries to do a like pseudo-political thriller, or Trial of a Time Lord. We gave it credit because they were trying this new trial format. I mean, it didn't work at all.
Yeah, trying, capitalized, bolded, underlined, italic, trying.
It completely fell apart 2 episodes in, not even 2 stories, 2 episodes. But, like, we gave them credit for trying it, right? And, like, even the War Games, they were trying something new in that they had those historical sections of it, but then also the science fiction sections,
Well, that wasn't that new. The show was always like historical,
but
sci-fi, historical.
In
sci-fi.
one story, flipping between the two, and then also having at the very end, like, oh, the Doctor's got to call his own people. Like, I don't know. I just feel like when Doctor Who breaks its own mold, so to speak, it's more interesting to watch. Which isn't to say that it's better necessarily, just more interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can't wait for them to try, quote unquote, I guess, a more sitcom-y feel, like in the Romans.
Well, like
They should honestly add a laugh track to the next season of Doctor Who.
well, like even there, like the
And
Romans,
a stationary camera.
a stationary camera. I don't know. The Romans, or at least they tried, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. That was just the point I wanted to make.
First Doctor stories in hindsight.
Why? Because it was one of the funniest. Well, like City of Death wasn't like a typical quote-unquote Doctor Who story. It was like an art thriller, I guess, almost.
Typical Douglas Adams piece
Story.
of garbage.
Hey, don't insult Douglas Adams.
Why not?
Because I find him
rude.
very funny. And also, yes, because insulting people is rude. Anyway, yeah, but I don't know. Those are just my thoughts on it, I think. And, yeah, Third Doctor. Still kind of a... Yeah. Still kind
Outlier
of,
there.
Still kind of a Third Doctor.
Still kind of a Richard. Well, he's not rich, actually, so he's more of just a dick.
I mean, at this point, like we said, we're just keeping the joke going at this point. I think he really did get better in his later seasons.
Yeah, no, he did.
Anyway.
This isn't one of his latest seasons. It's an audio.
I mean,
It's
yeah,
set,
but
like, between
even
7
in
and-
this story, he was better.
He is. It was mainly just season 7.
Yeah, it really was just mainly season 7.
Should have brought back a heat shield in this. Honestly, I can't even remember. I've turned the heat shield into like such a meme on this podcast that I don't even remember if it was just in the Demons or if it was actually a recurring thing.
I'm fairly certain it was just the Demons.
Oh. Well, they need to bring it back.
We have a lot of memes on this podcast.
Yeah.
Like Tagana.
I'm going to try and turn Aaron into a new
Aaron.
thing, but when you try and turn it into one, it's never as good.
It's got to naturally evolve.
Yeah.
It's got to
Who
kind
knows,
of
maybe Aaron will come into his own.
bring Aaron back as a villain.
Yeah, forget New Dawn.
You mean the Sentinels of the New Dawn?
Yeah.
Anyway, that about wraps that up. You can email us at thedoctor@decorativvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on the Sentinels of the New Dawn. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. I forgot where you could find us for a second. All at Trust Your Doctor. Please leave a rating if you like the show, or if you didn't, telling us what you'd like better than us.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next week, we're listening to The Valley of Death. Until then, the end.